We have defensive coordinator Jeff Koonz. Questions for Coach Koonz? Greg?
So Jeff, start with, what is it that you would hope to try to improve upon? I mean, you're two-thirds of the way through the season. There's only so much you can do, but what areas do you want to see it get better?
Yeah, I think it's been very important the last week since the coach made the decision to make a change of what we're trying to gather as a defensive staff, what we want to do as a defense. The timing of the bye week helped with that. We've got to get lined up as fast as possible. We've got to make sure that all 11 guys on that field understand what the call is, how to execute the call, and what success they should expect after that call. And I say that the confidence that comes with understanding exactly what we're trying to accomplish with each and every single call that is made is paramount right now. And that's what we've got to make sure that on every play, not when you're up by 10, down by 10, doesn't matter. There's a standard of defense that we have got to put on tape on every single play and making sure that they do that. Because when you talk about it and you hear coach, it's the word inconsistency has been brought up multiple times, just inconsistent. And we've got to be more consistent. How do you do that? By practicing being consistent. And with this, there's as much of an organization part of this and a day-to-day and a game planning and a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to prepare for Saturday, not just, hey, who's calling the plays now? There's a way more that goes into it. And then what are you doing at practice and how can you simulate those things? With that consistency, now that's hopefully where you see the takeaways and getting the ball back, reducing the amount of possessions that we're going to play on every single game, and understanding that that's a huge part of it, And so those are two. Obviously, an increase in takeaways and a more consistent brand of football is what we're hunting for right now. There's no issue in pressuring the quarterback. There's no issue with tackles for loss. There's no, we got to eliminate explosive plays. We got to be able to look at the end of the game and say, hey, we made them earn it. You go back to Arizona and we had a 14-play drive in the first half. Like, no one is sweating about a 14-play drive. We had some third downs that we could have gotten off the field. Well, you go correct those and you say, okay, you made them earn it. It wasn't an explosive here, an explosive there. It wasn't a chunk play for 50, and we got to eliminate those. How do you do that? Again, it goes back to being consistent with the alignment, the assignment, the eyes, and everybody understanding how their 111th ties into the guy next to them, the guy in front of them, and the guy behind them.
Do you feel ready for this opportunity? Coach Brown mentioned you turned down other similar opportunities in the past to stay. And
yeah, 100%. It's funny. Over the last week, this is a part of college football. This is part of coaching in college football, and this is not something that's easy for anybody to go through. This is not a promotion. This is an obligation. This is a opportunity right now for us to play really good football in the month of November as a defense and as a team, and that's the objective. That's how I look at it, and I've been doing this now for over 20 plus years in college football. And I think the history, the different systems that I've been through, when you go back and you look through what I've had the opportunity to be a part of in the 4-3 defense when it was alive and rolling back in the early 2000s in the Tampa 2 and would derive from what Monty Kiffin was doing in the NFL to the 3-4 defense that Coach Saban, who just retired, was running, and Coach Smart and all those guys are running right now, into the 4-2-5 defense, which I was a part of for 7 years at 2 different schools, into the 3-3 stack defense, which was derived from what Rocky Long was doing at New Mexico and San Diego State back in the day. You look at all of these things, and now we're in this 3-4 structure that I'm now in year 6 as a part of it, and the beautiful thing of it is it's a part of all of it. And at the end of the day, no matter what system you're in, it's 11 guys that have to play with relentless effort, have to play with unbelievable technique, and they have to strain for each other. All right, and that's at the end of the day, that's the most important thing right now, that guys are straining, guys are getting to the football, and they understand why we're calling what we're calling and what the outcome should be expected out of that.
Some pre-snap things and some post-snap things in terms of being more consistent.
Yes.
One more of a problem area than the other, and how do you address each one of those, especially the pre-snap stuff?
Yeah, well, I think pre-snap, obviously, the proof is in the film. I mean, you can show guys the film and say, hey, this was the look, this is what the offensive line saw, so this is how they ID'd it, this was the look, this is what the quarterback saw, this is why he went here with the read, and you're continuing to educate. And whether it's a freshman, whether it's a senior, it doesn't matter. They're all still learning because they're going to see plays on that Saturday that they weren't prepared for. In this conference, at this level of football, they're all going to play based off of their instincts and based off of what the base fundamental teachings are. It's not going to be cookie cutter. It's not going to look exactly the way it looked in practice. As much as we're going to try as coaches to make it like that, that's not going to happen. So educating them and letting them learn from their experiences so that now we can put them in a position to understand that and hopefully be 2 steps ahead the next time it happens. So pre-snap, there's a lot of education going based off of the film and what we've done. This bye week was no different than the first bye week. We did a ton of self-scout. We did a ton of self-evaluation, a ton of self-analysis, and then used certain things in the practice days that we did have last week and into yesterday. So that's a huge part of it. Post-snap, it's about execution. And the best part of execution is making sure that 11 guys have the correct alignment, they have their eyes in the right place, they've made any necessary communication pre-snap, and all parts are in sync. And that's something that we've talked about the last week is all parts are in sync. Whether it's the front, the linebackers, the DBs, whatever that is, everybody's in sync and everybody knows what the expected outcome of the play is going to be. In our favor, and have a confidence with that. So there's a lot that goes into a pre-snap, post-snap. It all starts with getting our cleats in the ground and being ready to play when the ball is snapped,
What is the difference between coaching one segment of the defense and then all of a sudden having the whole thing to worry about, including concepts and everything else?
Yeah, I think going back to what we talked about a minute ago, everybody says, okay, there's a new play caller. Yeah, that's very true. But when you're coordinating a defense and you're coordinating a staff right now that's got 8 to 10 guys in that room that are game planning, that have different parts of what their expertise is, and then you're going to work and you're going to organize a practice on what plays you're going to see during that practice, how you're going to rep, the tempos that you're going to do, how are we going to instill those pre-snap pictures, how are we going to make sure that we're lined up post-snap and we're able to execute and go post-snap. And you got to see the big picture, and you got to see how one part of the defense affects the other part, and then you've got to be able to stand in front of the entire group right now and make sure you're tying all those pieces together. You can't have a functional defense right now that is the back end, the front end, the inside backers, the outside backers. It's one defense. There's 11 guys that are wearing that WVU logo, and they owe it to each other and to the people watching that game to make sure that they're all on the same page. And as in this role, that's the biggest difference, And you're always asked to be the head coach of your position group. Coach Brown says, hey, you're the head coach of the inside linebackers, or what I was doing with the special teams coordinator role over the last 4 years. At the end of the day, now, you're the head coach of the defense, and you got to make sure that everybody understands how important their role is, and they have the confidence to do their job. And that's coaches, that's players, and here's the deal. And the reason why this is an unbelievable opportunity, because there's several men in that room right now, in that defensive staff room, coaches, full-time analysts, GAs, that are very, very smart, that are very, very sharp, that have unbelievable work ethic, and that's not going to change. And the character of the guys in that room right now and the intelligence of the guys in that room is not going to change. And we're going to put our best foot forward, and it's just going to be my job to make sure that all the pieces understand how they affect each other.
This type of change isn't easy for anybody, especially at the point when it happens, especially for young guys. How have the players, how have the young guys handled it?
I think, going back to last week, I think there was some surprise. I think there was some... I guess surprise is the main word. Caught off guard with some of the things. They're young guys. They're loyal. They've been around this staff the way it was and how it's been. And Coach was very involved in their recruitment and in all of those things. And it's difficult. The thing that I commend them on is how they also have come to the realization of, we play a game next Saturday, and we're going to Nippert Stadium. We're going to play Cincinnati in a huge Big 12 battle. And we owe it to the state of West Virginia and to this university to make sure that we have a defense that is going to play extremely hard and extremely fast and go give us a chance to win the game. And that doesn't stop for anybody. And that's any coach, that's assistant coach, coordinator, head coach, it doesn't matter. Just like if we have a player that's injured, the next guy has got to be able to step up and go do their job. And that's what we all signed up for. And I think it showed a lot of maturity from some of those young guys who, and some of our old guys that have been here the longest and have been part of this system and the dynamic of this staff the longest. It's just as hard for some of those guys. But at the end of the day, we play a game here in 6 days, so we got to be ready for that.
How much play calling have you done in the past, and how different is that? Because you don't have a whole lot of time to,
Yeah.
research everything.
Yeah, so the last time was 2016, my last year at Cincinnati, coincidentally enough, was the last year that I called the defense. It was a co-coordinator role. I was more the passing game coordinator, calling it in conjunction with the defensive line coach. That was a full season. That was not a battlefield promotion. That was an off season. That was truly a promotion where the coordinator left, got another opportunity, and I was promoted into that role. Since then, I've been a co-coordinator for 1 year at North Texas, and then been a position coach ever since, and obviously taken over the special teams coordinator role here the last, whatever that is, 4.5 years now, I guess, over 4.5 years. I think it's this. When you're going through, when you're in this role, and it's for any position coach in major college football right now, especially at the Power 4 level in this conference, at a school like West Virginia, you've got very competent people in the room to assist a coordinator, and you have a coordinator that is talking to you guys on Mondays. That's the face of the defense. That's the face of the offense. That's doing that. But you have multiple guys in that room right now that natural. You're going to go, yep, this is what I would call, this is what I would call, this is what I would call. You present those ideas to the defensive coordinator, and then at the end of the day, he's the one calling them. And so I think whether it's myself, whether it's Andrew, whether it's Vic, whether it's Shadon, any of the above, we've all been preparing for this our entire time, some longer than others. And now you're in this role. The only difference is now you're writing those down, and now you're hearing what other people think, and you're trying to formulate that game plan to the best of your ability, because now in that 40-second play clock, you're the one making the call and trying to give your guys the best opportunity. So I think it is different, it is new, but being prepared for all the situations in the game, being prepared for the field zones, being prepared for whatever, every game there's a new adventure. We laugh about it. There is no script. It's going to be different. Every game is its own animal, and being ready to go and be ready to make sure you have the right 11 guys in the right spots. To say I'm not excited about it, yeah, I sure am. But there's a lot that goes into it, and there is, like I said, the obligation is to make sure that we're ready to go on Saturday.
Whatever you can give on any conversations you've had with Coach Brown the last week or so since you got this promotion, just for the fact of the differences of when Coach Scott got promoted offensive coordinator. Neil's much more of an offensive guy through his career. Mm-hmm. So what were those conversations like? How much can you rely on him? I mean, he doesn't really call defensive plays. So that's a little different dichotomy.
Yeah, well, I think in this organization, in this program, on this staff, we all have the vision of Neil Brown, and that is in all three phases of football. And this is Neil Brown's team, all right? And whether it's Chad, whether it's myself now, whether it's any of our position coaches, we all understand the message and what the identity of this football team is going to be. And that hasn't changed. When I meet with Coach Brown now, as opposed to when I was a special teams coordinator, that hasn't changed. And the one thing that I think Coach does a phenomenal job of is that when we go into a game on Saturday, whether it's a noon kickoff or a 7:30 kickoff, everybody in this organization understands what our formula for success is that day. And it's different from week to week, depending on who we're playing. But so to say that those conversations are any different now because of the role, they're really not. They've always been very detailed. They've always been very deliberate, and understanding the pulse of the defense and the pulse of the special teams and the pulse of the offense and how they interact with each other as a team, as this West Virginia football team, that's always been consistent.
Now, a lot of this sounds like cleaning up what you already have been doing on defense, organizing, everything you just said at the very beginning. But you said writing down ideas of other people. And I'm imagining, like anybody else, you probably have been like, man, when I get a chance, I want to do this, right? Is there room for things like that to try something that you can watch, like, hey, there's a spot to do this, or I've always wanted to try this in the situation?
Yeah, I think, and I understand your question. Let me answer this. What we're doing right now, coming off of the bye week and looking at 8 weeks, I wouldn't say necessarily, Mike, it's a cleaning up. It's what is going to be our best recipe for the month of November. We've got 4 games right now that we have a resume of eight games right now. All right, some really good, some not as good as we want, some not very good. Okay, how can we eliminate the negative and accentuate the positive right now, and make sure we're getting the strengths out of our best players, and making sure we're building a system right now that gives them an opportunity to do that. With that being said, I have full and utter confidence in this system. This system of defense I would put against any out there. And because of the multiple ways that we can attack offenses, the multiple ways that we can show different pictures pre-snap, the multiple ways that we can attack different run schemes and take away different receiving threats and different route patterns, to say that, okay, without completely uncovering what we're doing to a quarterback, to a coordinator, with the coach to player, with the check with me systems and all those things. Also, against tempo offenses, I believe in this system to be able to get lined up quickly once we have a call to execute the defense, no matter what the tempo might be. So I think the biggest point in your question is do I believe in what we're doing and do I believe we have enough defense? 100%. I think it's about picking and choosing the right defense. We can't run this entire system in a game week. It's impossible. All right? So every week we're trying to pick the best things that we can do against that offense and be really, really good at them.
Something that you touched on there that Neil also mentioned too was you couldn't give them the answers on the field, and that the looks had to be different. And it sounded like it was predictable, I think is the word you'd used too. Is that a habit defenses or even play callers can fall into when there are struggles and you kind of stick to what you know and maybe you kind of narrow rather than go too broad and risk something that's new or different?
Well, I think it's more of this. You want to, and I've used this term a couple different times, you want to give your players the best chance for success and their comfort level and where they have banked repetitions, where they have, not just the game week, but now you go back to fall camp, you go back to spring football, you go back to the off season. These guys that have been here, in this system, there's actually a really big menu of what the guys truly know. So to answer your question, I don't think it's necessarily a play caller deal. I think it's more of, hey, let's give them a chance to pin their ears back and play fast up front, to really be aggressive at the second level, and whether it's a blitz, whether it's a fit, whether it's a coverage, hey, on the back end, man, these guys understand this is what we're doing here, this is what we're doing. So I think within that, the challenge is now create pictures, create pre-snap looks that aren't going to confuse yourself, but they're going to confuse the opposition and the opponent and the coordinator and the quarterback.
Now that you have to take kind of this broader kind of macro look at the entire defense, how is Luke Nardo going to be able to help you kind of in the position itself?
Yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize how great Luke has been, a help with me now in his second year, learning the defense, learning the scheme, learning the position. He's been on the field with the linebackers. I've been in the box all season long. He's been the one showing the backers the iPads. He's been the one making the corrections. He's been the one going through series with those guys. That role's not going to change. He truly is the assistant linebackers coach, so his role is going to definitely elevate on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to hang on him as I have been doing, especially when I got pulled off to do special teams things. So he's been huge, and that'll continue.
Real quick here, what jumps out at you with the Bearcats? I mean, they run the ball really well.
Yeah.
They got a good passing attack. What do you see?
Yeah, I see explosive plays all over the field. They have explosives in the pass game in certain weeks. They have explosives in the run game in certain weeks. Coach Satterfield has a system. He believes in that system. That system hasn't changed. He's got some dynamic players, some really good additions from when we played him last time, but he also has really good continuity up front with a bunch of seniors and upperclassmen that understand this system in year two. He's got a trigger man, the quarterback, who's playing at a really high level that can make all the throws required within this offense. The tight end, number 11, is elite. He's a really good pass catcher. He's a good blocker, and again, understands what they're asking him to do and how he fits within it. And they're explosive on the outside with their receiving core, and they have multiple guys that can take it the distance, and that's on tape. You can see that. So it's a great challenge. Kudos to them. What they've been able to do in year two of their system.
Coach Vic, you're probably the most demonstrative coach on the field. Does that have to change any being a coordinator, or do you have to be who you are to be the best version?
I'm not going to change. Our players deserve the best piece of every coach on this staff every single day, and that's not going to change. And how I coach, how I teach, whether it's 9 linebackers in the inside linebacker room or it's 40 guys on a travel squad on defense or 35, whatever that is not going to change. And I would expect every single coach on our staff and on the defensive side of the ball to continue to do that. It's just a little bit different makeup now. It's a little bit different than it was, but who we are as a team, and I'll say this in finishing the answer to that, it's about our players playing, our defensive guys playing with that same kind of energy, that same kind of confidence right now, and attacking the football, whether it's in the run game or the pass game, and understanding right now that the expectation is that they go attack. And that's how we're going to practice, that's how we're going to play, and that's to say that's any different than it has been, I can't do that. It has been like that, but it's about doing it consistently, going back to where we started here about 15 minutes ago.
Okay, thank you very much.